Hello and welcome to Responsible Government Contracting, where we dispel misconceptions, bring understanding to the acquisition process, and educate small businesses to engage responsibly in public sector contracting. In this episode, we will be talking about federal acquisition regulations, limitations on subcontracting, and how it affects small businesses in the prime contractor position. Today we're going to be talking about the federal acquisition regulations, definition of limitations on subcontracting. What does that mean? If you are a small business that has been awarded a small business contract, then this applies to you. If you are a small business that was awarded or won a full and open competition, or you are a subcontractor on a federal contract, then this does not apply to you. So if you are a small business in federal government contracting, and you were awarded a federal contract as a prime that was set aside in its competition, then this conversation applies to you. So what does that mean? Well, take a look at your contract, and that's the Form 1449. It's going to look something like this. It's a standard Form 1449. That is going to be the top sheet, the cover sheet of your contract, of your awarded contract. There's this block 10 up here in the top right that says a whole bunch of information. This acquisition is unrestricted, and that means full and open, right? So if it's unrestricted competition, then this part of the conversation does not apply to you. However, if the contract is set aside in any of these categories down here, and again, set aside if this block is checked, if this box is checked, then what that's going to look like is set aside. Actually, this was kind of a mistake here. It should have just been the set aside box check here, and it was set aside for small business. So this is an example from 2013 of what a set aside contract looks like. So this contract was awarded to a small business in the NAICS code in the North American Industry Classification System code of 311422. So that's how you know if this conversation applies to you. If you have a contract and you are the prime, look at your 1449 at this cover sheet and see if any of this is checked. If it is, then pay attention. So if that's checked, then you have to understand the amount of work that you do as a company versus how much work you subcontract out to other companies. Think of this in construction. Construction is a great example. How much work does the general contractor or the GC have to do themselves? What does themselves mean? Versus how much do they subcontract out to other companies, other trades, other organizations, other GCs? How much of that work is actually subcontracted out to other companies? So what does subcontracting mean? Well, subcontractors include 1099s, anybody who's not a W-2 employee of your company. So that's other entities, other companies. So if Acme Corporation is the general contractor and Acme Corporation was awarded the prime contract, then they are the prime contractor. So any consultants, any ABC Electric and XYZ Plumbing, those are both other companies that the prime general contractor is subcontracting to. So the general contractor, the prime company, has to do certain amount of work on that contract in order to stay within the regulations. What are those rules? They vary from industry to industry. So if you are in, let me restate that one more time. So the amount of work on a prime contract, that it only applies to small business awarded contracts. So it has to be a prime contract. You have to be the prime contractor. You have to be a small business, and the contract has to be awarded to you as a small business. So it can't be a full and open contract. It has to be awarded as a small business, all right? So with that in mind, if you are in that category, then you have to do, in services, you have to do at least 50% of the work. So that means if it's a $100,000 contract, then your employees have to do the value of the contract of at least half, which means $500,000 of the work. So that's your total, fully burdened with fee value of the work, that's billed to the government, has to come from you. At least $500,000, the half dollar value, right? The half of the contract has to be done by your employees. Okay. Now, there might be some flexibility, but general rule of thumb is that means your W-2 employees, so employees that actually work for your company, not 1099s, not subcontractors, right? So you need to do with your employees, your W-2 employees, at least 50% of the work, and that's in services, contract professional services, janitorial services, IT services, anything in that category has to be done by your company, your employees. There is a caveat to this that just recently was applied, and it's similarly situated companies. So we kind of get into the weeds on this one, but if you as a small business were awarded a prime contract and it's a set aside for small businesses, then you are allowed to subcontract work to another small company that is like you. More specifically, is like the contract that it's awarded. So what do I mean by that? To confirm, look at this box up here. If you have hub zone checked, then that means the contract that you were awarded was awarded to you because it was competed or it was sole sourced to you as a hub zone company. So only hub zone companies can satisfy that 50% of that contract work. So you as a hub zone can do 35% of the work, and you can subcontract to another hub zone certified company that can do 15% of the work, or 16%, right? So a little bit more than 50% just to be safe. But the aggregate total is work completed by similarly situated companies. So hub zone, prime, hub zone, subcontractor, and then you can subcontract out to any other qualified company, right, to get the work done. So that's the similarly situated caveat to that. Now this changes when you're talking about construction and specialty trades. So construction, remember we talked about the general contractor, the GC in the construction world? Well, if a small business is awarded a construction company, that small business has to do at least 15% of the total value of the contract. Now, this typically applies only to the labor portion of the contract, but that is specific to the terms and conditions of each contract. So some means including the materials of the contract, but general rule of thumb is that 15% applies to the value, the labor portion of the contract, okay? So a general contractor can do 15% of their prime contract, the labor dollar values of the contract, and then subcontract out up to 85% of the value of the labor of that construction contract. So here's the differentiation. It has to be a small business as the prime. The contract has to be competed and awarded as a small business contract. So it has to have those box checked in block 10. Don't worry about full and open, don't worry about full and open competition. Those are a different category. But if you fall into those categories, then you have to make sure you're doing at least 50% of the work or at least 15% of the work, and either you or a similarly similarly situated small business are doing that type of work. If you go to the Small Business Administration's website, you can see this spelled out here also. So straight from their website, the 50% rule for services contracts. Here's the other big one, is 15% for construction contracts. Materials contracts is a really different thing, because we start talking about the non-manufacturing rule, which is a totally different thing. And then specialty construction contracts, that's also kind of a different thing. That rule is 25%. So again, 50%, 50% for services contracts for small businesses, and 15%, 15% for construction contracts. Thanks for your time today, and hope that clarified FAR 52219-14. Thanks again. Bye-bye.